With Hashem's loving grace, welcome to Emunah Beams with your host, Lazer Brody. I have an amazing story to tell today. Yesterday, I spent the day at the rehab center of Tel HaShomer Hospital. It's like the equivalent of the Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C., where wounded Army veterans come for rehabilitation, and many of them, heaven forbid, they're amputees and got a rough road. These are wonderful heroes, a whole hospital full of heroes. And Avram Chaim Rutenberg, he accompanied me, and we made our rounds, went to visit wounded soldiers, wounded policemen from the war, from terrorist attacks during the war. And we're about to leave the hospital, and I see in the corner, there's a family there, a young guy and either his girlfriend or his wife, and an elderly woman with them. And usually in Israel, we know because of people's dress, their mannerism, that these people are Ethiopian and these people are Russian and these people are Yemenite, these people are Israelis. Well, they could see a typical Israeli-Russian family, Jewish-Russian family. And many of the Russian families, they came out of Russia because of the communism, and they weren't versed in Judaism. And some they're staunchly not religious. And don't like to push things on anybody else, to push an agenda, just smile and tell everybody that Hashem is close and Hashem is there. And we live in Hashem's palace and land of Israel. But they kind of shied away from them. Sometimes you feel you have a sensitivity, who to go talk to, who's receptive and who's not receptive. So the guy looked at me, the wounded soldier, an amputee, lost a leg. And I see the way he looked at me like a type of pleading look, come close. And so it was magnetizing, and I came close and said, Shalom Aleichem, introduced myself, and they introduced the family. And this was a young soldier that lost his leg in a combat in Gaza just about 6 weeks ago, and his fiancée and their grandmother. So the grandmother has tears in her eyes. And she says, Rabbi, I started keeping Shabbat. I'm not a Hashem's cop. I don't interrogate people what they do, what they don't do. But she told me, and she had tears in her eyes. She said, I've got to tell you a story. And before the grandmother told the story, the soldier said, yeah, that's why I wanted you to come closer, because I have a story that nobody believes. My grandmother believes me, but nobody else believes it. He says, it's too crazy. They didn't even want to believe the miracle, but it's too crazy. So I said, yeah, tell me, go ahead. So first he told me his story. Told me a story that they went into combat. And it was at Sijaya, the refugee camp in Gaza City. It was a real rat's nest. And they were in a Namer. A Namer is a ATC. And it looks like a tank without a turret. There was fire going on all around them. They're shooting. And all of a sudden, he feels like a hand coming out of nowhere. And a strong hand on his shoulder, and threw him. He was standing next to the door of the ATC in the back, and threw him off the ATC. And he fell off. And at that moment, he fell off in a split second. A RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade, that's RPG, and it hit the Namer, and 6 other guys in the vehicle, they got killed. But Boris, that's his name, the Russian soldier, but the Russian-Israeli soldier, Boris, he lost a leg, but he didn't lose his life. And the grandmother now tells her part of the story. And she says it was 3:30 in the morning. And that's exactly when this happened. It was in combat in the wee hours of the morning. And her grandfather came to her in a dream. And the grandfather had a long beard, and the grandfather was a Russian Hasidic Jew. And he said to her, don't worry, you're going to get some alarming news now, but everything is going to be okay. And they disappeared from the dream. And just right after that, she woke up, and shortly afterwards, she got a call from the army, not to worry that her son is in the hospital and he's been injured, but he's going to pull through. Now, they told her that she was completely armed, so she got dressed and ran away to the hospital. Simultaneously, she had a vision of her grandfather, and the soldier had a vision of his great-grandfather, his great-great-grandfather, that came to him and pulled him off pulled it and saved his life. And Zapad came to his granddaughter and told her everything was going to be okay. So what we learned from this, we learned that the neshamas, they leave the world, but there's no death. There's no death to the neshama. The neshama is very alive. The soul, it's still very alive. And it could do what it wants, what it does, and when it does. And that's not the only story like that. I've heard other similar stories where someone felt an influence really being pushed in some direction or something, and no apparent explanation, nobody else around. Hashem does this for a few things because it shows us that the power of the neshama never dies, and that this world, next world, it's all one thing. It's all, this world is really a big mirage, that the truth is in the next world, and that the neshamas can go here and there, especially a righteous neshama. And so this is part of the news. This is the war of Emunah that's going on right now, the Simchas Torah war. And we always say that if Hamas has 97% dark side Emunah, then we need 98% light side Emunah to defeat them. So we strengthen our Emunah. We know that with us, with Emunah, miracles are natural. Miracles are above nature. Emunah is above nature. So when we uplift ourselves above nature, then in Emunah, then miracles are natural. And I have no doubt about that Hashem is going to do everything for the best. And we hope soon to see Mashiach Tzidkenu in our rebuilt Holy Temple and a revival of the dead, that all the deceased, they come back. This is a principle, 13th principle of our Emunah, just our first principle when we believe in Hashem. He doesn't do everything. That we believe in the 13th principle and all the ones in between. So take care and God bless, and hope you see you soon on emunahbeams.com and laserbeams.com.